Director Davies. Here. Director Martinez. Director Monahan. Director Piotr.
Here.
Director Stack.
Yep.
Director Schoffel. Director Shea. Yes. Director Spitzer. Director Ward. Here. We have quorum.
Thank you. That brings us to the item public comments. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak?
No, we don't.
Thank you. So item 3 is our consent calendar.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
On our desks, our revised agenda. Can somebody highlight what's changed between the agenda that was distributed and today, so none of us inadvertently vote on something or confront an issue we're not aware of?
Yes, item number 8 was continued per the request of the chair.
Oh, it's just a continuance? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So with the consent calendar, do we have any items that a director would like to pull, or can we have a motion on the entire consent calendar?
So moved. Second.
Do we have a motion from Director Ward and a second from Vice Chair Carew?
You said a motion. I need to correct that. I have to abstain on number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have seen that.
And Ms. Davies made the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion from Director Davies and 2 abstentions and a second from Director Carew. Is that correct? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That brings us to item 4 of board business, number 6. And Mr. Lowe, good morning.
Good morning. I'm David Lowe, the acting chief engineer at the agencies. This item brings before you the proposed capital improvement plan for the upcoming fiscal year. Each year we bring this item before the boards to update you on the capital projects and bring to you our recommendations. The projects have been reviewed and forwarded for your consideration by the Joint Capital Programs and Projects Committee, and next year's expenditures for each of these projects were included in the proposed budget reviewed during the April 20th budget workshop. Each of the contracts related to these projects either have been or soon will be brought before the board for approval. Next slide. This slide is a system map that shows the locations of the fiscal year 2017 projects. For the San Joaquin Hills Agency, the projects include the Catalina View Traffic Improvement Project shown in green. This project is being planned to address periodic morning congestion on the northbound 73. For the Foothill Eastern Agency, the projects include the 241-91 Express Connector, the Tesoro Extension, and the 241 to I-5 connection. The 2 projects shown in blue are joint projects for both agencies. They include both the signage improvement and the toll booth removal projects. Next slide. Here's a list of the San Joaquin Hills Agency projects, along with the status and proposed expenditures planned for fiscal year 17. For the first project, the Catalina View, we are currently in the process of completing a preliminary concept study, and the next step was to begin a formal project initiation document with Caltrans. On the next 2 projects, we do anticipate completing the design work and moving to construction in the next year. And this includes the signage and the toll booth removal projects. Next slide, please. As a courtesy, we're going to show you the Foothill Eastern Agency projects. The first includes the 241 to I-5 connection, where we will be continuing our community outreach efforts leading up to the start of a new NEPA and CEQA process. We're also looking at acquiring open space and mitigation properties for that project. The Tesoro Extension project includes coordination with the county and Rancho Mission Viejo on their Los Patronos Parkway project, and TCA's efforts will continue to focus on the Oso Bridge and Gap Closure project. On the 241-91 Express Connector, our project team will be continuing work on the environmental document, the preliminary engineering. We'll be continuing our public outreach efforts, developing a finance plan, and commencing final engineering. Again, we do anticipate completing the design work and moving to construction the next year on the signage and toll booth removal projects. And this shows the Foothill Eastern portion of that work. Next slide. So staff recommends adoption of the capital improvement plan, and that completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Do we have any questions from the board? Yes, Dr. Ferguson?
Yes, with regard to the outreach, I know at the last meeting, the mobility workshop, there were a number of proposed possibilities of connections and other roads that might improve mobility for the South Coast region. And I know that there's going to be a report on that at the next mobility workshop, and I wondered if we could be sure to bring that back to the board so that we can at least see, because there were a lot of good ideas put forth at that meeting, and I think they're going to be evaluated. And there's going to be a presentation of the evaluation at the March 25th meeting. So I wonder if we could have a report on that.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Ward?
I have a question. I think this past year we haven't been calling a project the Tesoro Extension. I believe we approved a bridge at Oso. So correct me if I'm wrong, I wasn't aware that we had a project on here that was actually called the Tesoro Extension.
Well, this is actually the first year we're transitioning from the two projects. So we've taken on the task of designing the Oso Bridge and Gap Closure Project, and that's primarily our focus at this time.
Okay, so is this agency announcing that this is the Tesoro Extension? That's what it appears.
There's two elements to that project. Go back to that slide. So there's two components of the Tesoro Extension. There's the Oso Bridge and Gap Closure, and there's also the Los Patrones Parkway. So there's two elements to that we'll be expending effort on next year.
Okay, so are we going to announce what that effort is?
That is what that effort is. It's coordination with the county and RMV on Los Patrones Parkway, and final design and coordination with the county on the Oso Bridge and Gap Closure.
Okay, and how does that fit in with the environmental studies?
Director, if I may, I would ask, could you do the same question but at Foothill Eastern?
I could do it. Okay, so right now you are not asking me to approve these capital improvement projects for the Foothill Eastern.
Right, this was as a courtesy, we were just showing the elements of that to the San Joaquin Board.
I get it. I will wait.
And conversely, we'll show the Foothill Eastern Agency the San Joaquin Hills Project.
I knew that. I just,
Okay.
because you presented it and talked about it, I started talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I've just had my finger up here for a while. And just briefly, I just want to thank our staff for these pictures. I mean, there's some are so-so, but some of them are really fantastic of the toll road system. And I hope that we utilize those on our webpage and wherever we're at, because they really look fantastic, don't you think?
Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
They don't look like New Jersey, do they?
Exactly.
No, they don't.
All right,
Thank you.
if we have no further questions,
Comment real quick?
yes, Director Sitzer.
Just with respect to Director Ward's point, Mr. Lowe, and everybody, I think, when you make a presentation and you're doing the point, like you're talking about Foothill Eastern issues with the San Joaquin, I just wish you would just take an extra effort to highlight that and ensure the board or whoever you're in front of that, the recommended actions are clear about what we're being asked, because everybody up here has a certain sensitivity about what votes they have and mistakenly or inadvertently doing something, and everybody has a right to vote how they want to vote and how they believe their constituency will respond. So I think out of an abundance of caution, I mean, I completely understand Director Ward's question, and I wouldn't want it believed, right, that I might have mistakenly or voted on something that wasn't clear. So I just think you can clear it up in your presentation, especially when you cover your staff recommendation, because we have a right and we should be cautious about our votes, that's all. Thank you.
So then that raises a question for Mr. Joseph. Based on Mr. Cramon's comments, does that mean that, how will this be voted on by for example, by Director Ward?
voted on as an approval of the San Joaquin Hills Capital Improvement Program.
Okay, all right, that's great, thank you. Okay, so if we have no further comments, I'd call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion from Vice Chair Caruth and a second.
How was the motion framed? Staff recommendation?
Staff recommendation.
All right, so let me clarify that. I'm looking at the transmittal, and the staff recommendation is to approve both. We don't even have jurisdiction, but that's my point, is the staff recommendation is both. And so it's a transmittal to both boards.
Well, the action though, the action is for CIP for San Joaquin Hills.
Mm-hmm.
So,
We can't vote on Foothill, can we?
Of course we can't, but the motion should be framed, move the recommendations only with respect to the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency CIP. Because the way, it's right here, it's jointly done, and that's why it's potentially misleading. So just clarify it in your motion, and then it'll be unequivocally clear, we won't have a misunderstanding.
move that we adopt the capital improvement plan CIP for the San Joaquin Hills 73 corridor.
I second it.
It's right
I'm
here.
sorry, who seconded that? Okay, so a motion by Vice Chair Caruth and a second by Director Davies. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lowe.
You're right, you were right.
Are we good? Okay. Okay, let's move to item number 7, and Ms. McFall, your presentation. Good morning.
Good morning. Valerie McFall, Chief Environmental Planning Officer for the agency. In January of this year, the Board of Directors approved a contract with Corridor Management Group to provide design and program support and specialty services, which include engineering and acquisition services. The item before you today is the recommendation to issue Task Order 004 to Corridor Management Group to provide staff support related to acquiring and conveying mitigation parcels for the agency. To date, the agency has conserved over 2,000 acres of open space, which was mitigation for the 51 miles of toll roads in operation today. The costs associated with this task order are pass-through costs, which include escrow fees and closing costs, title reports, appraisals, Phase 1 site assessments, surveying and plotting of easements, and preparing legal descriptions with further details in the staff report before you. Staff will return to the board with any acquisition or transfer agreements prior to completing each property's transaction. The item was discussed at the April 21st Joint Environmental Committee meeting. The committee authorized staff to bring the item to the board for your consideration. At this time, staff is recommending approval of the issuance of Task Order 004 in the amount of $194,650 for the San Joaquin Hills Agency. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. McFall. Do we have any questions from the board? Yes, Director Bartlett.
Valerie, I understand that as part of the funding on this, there will be a creation of a non-wasting endowment for the future. Is that correct? And that will be brought to the board at a later date?
Yes, it's still in discussion with the resource agencies on whether or not that's required, but yes, that would be brought to the board at a future time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other question? Or a motion? A motion from Director Spitzer, a second from Vice Chair Caruth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now that brings us to the Chief Executive Officer's report. Mr. Cramen.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board. I'm happy to report this month in terms of the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor that for the month of April, transactions were up 5.7% over 2015 numbers, and revenue was up 8.5%. And then just a reminder that with our schedule, we will be having an ops and finance meeting on May 21st, where we will be, that committee consists of the entire board, and we will be presenting the budget at that meeting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Do we have any directors who wish to make a report or any new business? Yes, Director Spitzer.
I just wanted to update everybody. Yesterday at one of the OCTA committees, Finance and Admin, the committee voted 6-1 to advance to the full OCTA board the 405 toll lane express lane project, which of course will add an express lane and another general purpose lane, both a combination of toll revenue and Measure M dollars. So I know there's a lot of entities who are watching that closely, like, for example, the city of Costa Mesa and other corridor cities. We don't have many corridor cities because I think Costa Mesa is probably the most northern city of our body here, and Newport Beach is kind of there, but it's mostly impacted Costa Mesa North. But Mr. Kramen came and testified in support of the project yesterday and brought his executive team, and I was very appreciative of that. I thought that was a great showing. We need to remember that this project is going to have a significant and direct impact on the 73. Significant. It will have revenue potential for us. It will have mobility improvement for us. And so I'm just very excited that this project is moving forward. With a 6-1 vote, that's pretty significant coming out of our committee yesterday. So I'm fairly confident the full board will approve it on the 23rd. I've asked Mr. Kramen to again come to the full OCTA board and speak on behalf of TCA. But I just wanted to let you know that that project was moving forward very, very rapidly. So that, from my perspective, it's very good news.
Thank you, Director Spitzer.
Can we ask who opposed it or who's in opposition?
Yeah, well, Finance Director Miller, who is represents, well, he doesn't represent Seal Beach. He's on the Seal Beach City Council, but he's a representative for what that'd be the first supervisor of the second district. But he obviously and others in the corridor north are concerned about traffic bleeding out into the arterials. So we're getting a lot of answers to those questions, but at least at this point, Director Miller still isn't in opposition.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other reports? Okay, terrific. Now I believe we're adjourning to closed session. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Once the Foothill Eastern Board has called to order at 10:30 a.m., this board will be convening a joint closed session with the Foothill Eastern Board regarding the existing litigation itemized on the agenda. In addition, a conference with legal counsel under 54956.9 D2 regarding 2 matters, and we do anticipate that there will be reportable action.
Thank you very much.
The claim of Penny Borsuk arising out of toll violations she occurred, which claim was presented on April 16th, 2016.
Okay, thank you very much. And so we are going to adjourn the San Joaquin Hills Board meeting. Thank you.
We are going to reconvene the Foothill Eastern Board meeting, and we are doing a little bit of tag team board members here just because our closed session worked so long. To begin, I believe we need to report out on our closed session. Is that correct, Mr. Joseph?
Yes, Mr. Chair. While in closed session, the Board of Directors voted unanimously to reject the claim of Penny Borsuk arising out of toll violations she incurred, which claim was presented on April 16th, 2016.
Very good. Thank you very much. Board members, that takes us to item number 4, the board business, and actually that's going to take us to item number 5, the public comments, because number 4 was pulled. So public comments, do we have anybody who has hung on this long?
No, sorry.
No, thank you. So we have no public comments. Moving on to item number 6, the consent calendar, items 2 through 7. Do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, move the consent calendar.
Director Boyce, and a second?
No, I have to abstain from number 2.
Abstention for number 2. Are you seconding or abstaining for number 2? Abstaining for number 2. Second from Mr. Mueller. Thank you very much. All in favor of the consent calendar, say aye. Aye. We have the 2 abstentions. Any noes? Any other abstentions? That carries. Welcome, Director Puckett. We are moving on to item number 7, the board business, specifically item number 8, the fiscal year 2017 capital improvement plan. Mr. Lowe, welcome. And just so you know, you have board members that are dropping like flies. We have calendars we're getting to. You were wonderfully concise last time. Keep it the same.
I will try to be brief. This item is for the capital improvement plan proposal for the upcoming fiscal year. Each year we bring these items before the board to provide you with updated information and get your recommendations regarding our capital projects. The projects have been reviewed by the Joint Capital Programs and Projects Committee, and the next year's expenditures for each of the projects were included in the proposed budget reviewed at the April 20th budget workshop. Each of the contracts that are related to these projects either have been or soon will be brought before the boards for approval. This slide that you see before you is a system map showing the locations of the project. We have 3 projects on the 73, and that's for the other San Joaquin Hills agency. But just for your information, we have the Catalina View Traffic Improvement Project, and then 2 joint projects which are happening on both corridors are the signage improvements and the toll booth removal. For the Foothill Eastern Agency, we have the 241-91 Express Connector, the Tesoro Extension, and the 241 to I-5 Connection Project, as well as the 2 signage improvements and toll booth removal projects. Next slide. This is a recap of the San Joaquin Hills projects and their status and their cost estimates for next fiscal year. Next slide.
And so, directors, we are not going to be voting on that. That was just for our information only. We will be voting on the next one, Foothill Eastern. Thank you.
This slide shows you the projects for the Foothill Eastern Agency. The first includes the 241 to Interstate 5 connection, where we will be completing community outreach, and then leading up to the start of a CEQA NEPA process. And we're also looking at acquiring open space and mitigation property for that project. The Tesoro Extension project includes 2 items, which are coordination with the county and Rancho Mission Viejo on their Los Patrones Parkway project, as well as our efforts will be concentrated on the Oso Bridge and Gap Closure project. On the 241-91 Express Connector, our project team will be continuing work on the environmental document, the preliminary engineering, public outreach, finance plan, and final engineering. Again, we do anticipate completing the design work and moving to construction on the signage and toll booth removal projects. Next slide. So I'd like to clarify that this is, we are asking the board to adopt the capital improvement portion of the Foothill Eastern project. The San Joaquin Agency in the meeting prior adopted the San Joaquin portion.
Very good. That concludes your report. Mr. Lowe, if you would go back a slide to slide 3, Director Ward in the last meeting had asked a clarifying question on the Tesoro Extension. That is our second row down, wanting to understand terms. Do you want to articulate the question better than just teeing it up like that?
Well,
Lowe?
first of all, let's talk about the first part of this slide. The last line, initiation of new CEQA in the NEPA process. What portion of the 241 to the I-5 connection would you be initiating a new CEQA process on?
That would be the portion from Cow Camp Road to the south to wherever it ends up at the I-5.
Okay. And so in my voting for this, if I voted for today, am I voting for an extension from Oso to Tesoro to Cow Camp Road?
Actually, what we're asking you to approve is the concept of adding these items to the budget. The items include coordinating with the branch and the county on the Los Patrones project.
And Director Ward, as far as the CEQA and NEPA, as part of this, we're budgeting that process, which would look at and identify alternatives that are brought to us by the community and the board. You are not necessarily approving a project, but to start the process of looking at different solutions that would be carried forward and analyzed as part of the environmental process.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we're simply planning for that within the next fiscal year. That's why we're including that. And these items will all be included in the budget. We've already looked at the budget workshop. It'll be coming for you on May 31st.
Okay, now let's talk about the Tesoro extension. What are we approving on that?
So again, you're just adopting the concept of putting these dollars in the budget and giving us direction as staff to go forward with these capital projects. The two things we're looking at on the Tesoro extension include the work on Los Patrones Parkway that's headed up by the county and performed by the Rancho Mission Viejo, along with our development, as well as our work that's going to be happening on the Oso Bridge and Gap Closure Project, where we've already authorized the final design work, and we'll be working with the county on further implementation on that project, and that'll come back to the board as those items come before us.
When will that bridge come back to the board? At what point?
Well, we're anticipating a completion of the final design work probably at the beginning of next year, in the spring of next year. But the further work on that construction project will be dependent on other items that are happening, including the first item, which is the 241 to I-5 connection.
So this agency will not take on, you won't ask us for approval of that bridge until you have a connection to the I-5?
Well, that'll be up to the board. We'll be making recommendations as progress happens on both projects.
That's not what today's vote's for. And I think that was
Yeah.
the big question that you had earlier, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Carrie, please.
Just a quick
Director Ferguson.
quick comment, and that is I really appreciate the attachments to this report. They're really helpful, particularly because they give such a nice overview that we can refer back to, and they're just great, so thank you.
Good.
I'd like to move recommendation.
Thank you, Director. Did a second from Director Shea. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstention? So unanimous aye. Thank you very much, David. All right, moving on to item number 9, selection of consultants for on-call biological consulting services and award of task order 001. Ms. McFall, welcome.
Hello.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, before they start, I need to recuse myself of Levine Act issues, so I will not be participating.
Okay, very good.
Okay. In February of this year, the agency issued a request for proposals to provide on-call biological support services. The tasks identified within the RFP included preparing mitigation and native habitat site assessments, performing biological surveys, preparing resource management plans, and producing yearly reports in compliance with the permits issued for construction of the toll roads. As a result of the RFP, staff selected 2 of the most qualified firms to perform the required services. The item was discussed at the April 21st Joint Environmental Committee meeting. The committee authorized staff to bring the item to the board for your consideration. At this time, staff is recommending the award of a 5-year contract with up to 3 one-year extensions to SOMAS and Land IQ, the most qualified firms. Staff is also requesting the issuance of task order 001 to each consultant in the amount of $40,000 for SOMAS and $60,000 for Land IQ. The services under these task orders are distinct from each other and are based upon the requested scope of services as provided by staff. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Very good. Are there any questions? Do I have a motion? The motion of the
Second.
staff recommendation by Director Puckett
Second.
and a second by Director Voits. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? We have a unanimous. Thank you.
Oh,
Ms.
no, you don't.
Oh, and we have one recusal, which of course our clerk recorded without me having to even say so.
I know Ms. Ochoa did that, but the way you announce it publicly needs to match.
There we go. Thank you, Todd. All right, item number 10, Corridor Management Group Task Order number 004, Real Property Services. Valerie, you're up again.
Yes, I did present this to the San Joaquin Board earlier today, and I can go through my presentation again. This item is to issue task order 004 to Corridor Management Group, provide real estate property services support to staff, which includes performing appraisals, title reports, escrow fees. The costs associated with this task item are passed through cost only. And again, it includes providing escrow costs related to any property transactions that the agency may use for acquisition and also for conveying our mitigation properties. Staff is recommending the approval in the amount of, $683,900 for the Foothill Eastern Agency. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. Questions? Did I hear a comment over there from Director Shea?
Oh, I was looking at the report, it says 68,000, not 600, that, am I?
$683,900.
68 is the additional change order request.
Oh, the 10%, yeah, I was looking at the 10%, yeah. Okay, I'll move staff recommendation.
We have a motion from Director Shea and a second from Director Mueller. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Any recusals? We are good. Thank you, Valerie. Appreciate it. Mr. Kramer, this takes you to your Chief Executive Officer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sadly, we had a fatality on the road this week, Tuesday afternoon. A individual who was a track coach at Santa Margarita High School on his way to track practice encountered an accident. So when I get information from the CHP investigation, I'll definitely forward that to board members about what happened.
You have a woman right now trapped at the 241 and the 133. She went down 300-foot embankment, and she's been inside that car since last night.
She's still there?
Yeah, and OCFA is trying to extract her. I just got the text. So, yeah, let's keep her in our prayers as well.
Tough week on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the month of April, year over year, transactions were up 4.9% on the Foothill Eastern system, and revenues up 7.9%. That concludes my report.
All right, that is a wonderful report with the exception of the non-wonderful portions of that. In fact, we take the privilege of beginning with invocation. Allow me the privilege of sharing a quick prayer, offering a quick prayer, and please pray in your own faith. Lord, we are grateful for who you are and how you are a part of our lives. And we pray for these two families, for the woman who was trapped, for the first responders who were there. Give them wisdom, give them strength, give them ability to extract her, and for the family who lost their loved one earlier, we pray for your love and support. In your name we pray, amen. Friends, thank you for that. Thank you for all the hard work that you do in the committees to make these board meetings as efficient as they are. And with that, if there are any other director reports, please, Mr. Spitzer.
Real quick, colleagues, yesterday the Finance Administration Committee at the OCTA approved moving forward for the express lanes on the 405, so between the 73 and the 605, or just short of Long Beach, 11 miles. So, you know, what TCA pioneered here in Orange County is really spread around the country and certainly throughout Orange County, and the lessons learned here have been very instrumental in the success of moving that project forward. So $1.9 billion improvement project right on 405, 17 bridges widened. It's going to kind of be like the Riverside project for a couple years. But they're going to be a new general purpose lane and express lanes. It goes to the OCTA board on May 23rd. Thank you very much.
That is a great report. Thank you. Any other reports from directors? We are adjourned to our next regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you.